Confirm the audio and the video once. Good evening, Aditya. Good evening, Vanshaj. Good evening, Phoenix. I think, Phoenix, you have not seen many videos on this channel. That is why you are saying it. Probably. Right. Well, just confirm the audio and video once. There was some issue with some kind of issue. Anyways, that's all excuses. But I informed that it will be 15 minutes late, so I hope that's not much of a problem. Anyways, sorry for being late here. By the way, I know Phoenix. All right then. Good evening, Shoaib. Okay then. So from this week, I hope a lot of you know about it. And my voice is clear. Just confirm the audio once. Is my voice clear enough? Audible enough? Here I am. Hi. Everything is perfect. Shoaib says it's pretty low. I think you can just put on the earphones maybe. All right, who all are there? Just mark your presences. Decoding arguments in reading comprehension. This is a very important class. Last time I had a class which was main idea. All right, the main idea class was there. I hope you have gone through it. There was one class about tones, and now we'll be doing the premise, the arguments, the assumptions, which are very important for critical reasoning part of reading comprehension. All right, so I'll be giving you certain techniques through which you can. Okay, in main idea, I talked about the pillar roof technique and the back end, book end technique. Do you remember that? Have you gone through it? And have you tried to use them? So basically, from this week, we'll be doing 6 days classes. Some will be on the grad school platform as they are normally, and some will be on YouTube. So in a way, you will be completing your one topic in 9 different ways. One will be a short English explainer video, then there'll be Hindi explainer video. Hindi for the people, if you know, you can choose either English or Hindi or both, depends on you. Then there'll be live class, then there will be the session PDF will be given to you. Then there will be cheat sheet. So any topic that I'll be teaching you, you'll be getting cheat sheet so that you can revise it whenever you want to. You don't have to go through the entire class. You can just revise through the cheat sheet. Then there'll be a quiz. Then there will be on YouTube, we'll be doing extensive practice, marathon kind of thing. And based on that marathon, there'll be again a quiz. So basically there'll be 9 stages. And then you will be, if you have any doubt, you can, you'll be having, you already have a group in which you can ask the doubts. So all these things for just one topic. So in a way, you'll be completing a topic in exactly 2 ways. If I count only live, if I count everything, it'll be 9 different ways. And once this course is finished, you will be doing the crash course also, in which everything will be done again and again. Okay. So 9 times in the beginning, and then in the crash course, we'll be doing it twice, not just once, twice. The reinforcement of everything will be there in addition to mocks and everything. Okay. All right then. So I'll just try to minimize my frame so that, yeah, it's properly visible. All right then. So let's start. Okay. First thing first. What is an argument? An argument isn't a shouting match. It's a structured piece of logic where evidence leads to a claim. Evidence leads to a claim. So, evidence, you understand what is an evidence? In Hindi, we call it sabut. sakshya, any evidence. So the evidence is there. For example, the evidence is like Phoenix said that there's a weird channel, and and you're always 15 minutes late. So maybe the evidence is I'm 15 minutes late, always. All right. And the claim is it's a weird channel. Do you understand that? Evidence, I'm 15 minutes late. Claim, it's a weird channel. All right. So now that is the kind of an example which I gave you, the most relatable example for now. Claims can be false, claims can be true. And now, what will tell us whether the claim is true or false? Claim can be, it can be devoid of logic sometimes, it can be a logical fallacy sometimes, it can be a kind of a mismatch of flow. So all those things which are hidden, which are not explicitly mentioned. Do you understand that? So evidence is clearly mentioned, claim is clearly mentioned. What is not clearly mentioned is basically the assumption. All right. So, through this evidence and through this claim, it means if anyone is 15 minutes late on YouTube, the channel becomes weird. That's the assumption. Do you understand that, everyone? There'll be more examples, but this is the first example I could have come up with right now. So that's relatable. Cool. Got it? Okay. Now, let's understand. So, argument is basically done to persuade, okay? Attempts to persuade, and it uses premises to prove a conclusion. So we will be discussing premises, arguments, conclusion. We'll discuss all of it. For example, is it's raining, so we should stay in. So P is here the premise, and C here is the conclusion. It's raining, so we should stay in. All right. So it's basically a persuasion, isn't it? That we are persuading someone to stay in house, stay indoors. Why? The premise is it's raining. Is that clear? So now the assumption is missing over here. The assumption is something which is not explicitly mentioned. Okay. Now, explanation is attempts to clarify, describes why something is already true. Example, the road is wet because it rained. Okay. So explanation of it is, see, in argument, we try to persuade. In explanation, we try to clarify. So why something is already true? The example, road is wet because it rained. Okay, so road is wet, road is wet. That is what we have said already. But why is it wet? Because it has rained. So assumption is when it rains, road becomes wet. Is that clear? So we we present an argument to persuade, and we explain to clarify something, the reason. Is that cool? Clear? All of you? Okay. So now tell me something. In this example, what could be the assumption according to you? Premise is it's raining, and the conclusion is we should stay in. So what do you think should be the assumption? Now it's visible. Okay, cool. Tell me the assumption here. It's raining is the premise. We should stay in. That is the conclusion. What can be the assumption of the writer who wrote this thing? He or she must have assumed something. He or she must have assumed that planning to go out, that's the assumption. No, that can also, Piyush, that's a good thing. They were planning to go out. That can also be a premise. It won't be the assumption. Assumption will be going out is not an option when it rains. That can be the assumption. And this assumption is basically an individual opinion. There might be some people who will say, oh, it's raining, let's go out. That's also a possibility, isn't it? Some people will be like, I just love rains. Now it's a better reason to go out. Clear? So assumptions are not always universal. Do you understand? Premise is always universal. Premise is something that is factual. The fact is given to you. Assumptions are not universal. Assumptions can be within a framework, can be individual, can be a team opinion. Okay, it cannot be universal. And based on assumption, conclusions are drawn. So conclusions also are not universal. Understood? Is that clear? So what's universal? Only and only the premise is universal. Clear? Okay. Now, let's move on to next one. So to understand what a premise essentially means, the foundation of everything today's class is basically the premise. All right. So the premise is the evidence, the fact or research that supports the author's claim. As I told you already, it's basically a fact. Clear? It's basically a fact. Now, how do we understand something is premise or not? Now, you might think that this is a very easy thing. We understand this much language that we are able to understand what's a premise, what's a conclusion. That is pretty easy, isn't it? But still, in the exams, in the MBA entrance exams, this can actually confuse you. So there are certain ways in which if something is not clearly understandable, we are looking for some indicator words. So indicators, if a sentence uses things like since, because, given that, as evidenced by, this is basically a premise. All right. The role of the premise is it's non-negotiable evidence for the sake of the argument. It's non-negotiable. Okay, it has to be there. It has to be universal, and it is made just for the sake of argument. Okay, so premise actually supports or holds the argument. Now, how to focus it? How to understand this? Identify it first to find the structural bones. When I say structural bones, so the question might be talking about what can be the assumption, what can be the argument, what if this premise is false, how would it change the conclusion? So all those things are structural structures, and the bone of the structures is basically to identify the premise, because premise are the ones which are going to govern the entire conclusion based on what the assumption is. Is that clear? Understood? Yeah. Now, breaking down the premise. So I have given a statement here. Study shows that AI models trained on public data. It says studies show that AI models trained on public data replicate social biases. Therefore, we must implement algorithmic auditing. All right. Okay, there's something which you might be kind of relating with also, because you're using AI every time. You're using Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, multiple other AI models. So AI models are now trained on what? On public data, isn't it? Because all of us are somehow using AI in some or other way. So whatever we write over there, that is how the AI models get trained. So do you think AI models are unbiased? Not really. They are not unbiased, because whatever we feed them, that is how they train themselves. Obviously, after the feeding, there is something has to be done. What has to be done? There are some kind of, okay. So here it says we must implement algorithmic auditing. So if we audit the entire algorithm after any kind of AI model, be it chat GPT, be it anything, it gets biased. So the creators, the team, the tech team should be auditing it on the basis or algorithm wise, and that is how we can make it unbiased. Do you understand that? And I think I'm pretty sure that all of you understand this thing pretty well, that if you make an AI model, you cannot just leave it like that, because to make a model, if you require 100 people, then to run the model and keep it unbiased, you require 500 people more, isn't it? So that is something which I'm just trying to tell you the example of it. Now, in this statement specifically, the premise is AI models replicate social biases based on studies. Okay, so this becomes universal in nature. Why? It says based on studies. Now I want to ask you, how do we know this premise? We know this premise because there's an indicator over here. The indicator is studies. So studies are showing this thing. That means it has somehow become scientifically validated. It has become research. It is validated by research. All right. So now this becomes universal. So this can be used as a premise. This is not a conclusion. Do you understand that? Yes or no? It's not a conclusion, it's not an assumption, it's basically a premise. Now, if it's a premise, if it's a premise, it should be used to make an argument. Understood? So, now the logic here is this is the reason behind being provided for the upcoming action. So, argument has been made. The argument is, how do we know it's an argument? Because it starts with therefore. It is basically causality. So, if the premise is there, if the premise there, we can make an argument. How do you know it's an argument? Therefore, we must implement algorithmic auditing. So now we're pretty sure about this. If the studies are there, it becomes a premise. And if it's a premise, it has to be followed by some kind of argument. Argument can be an action, action of persuasion, action of putting forward a point, action of putting forward an opinion. So that has been put over here in the second part. Okay, so essentially we understood what this is basically a premise. And now do you understand what a premise is and how do we understand the premise? So whenever you get a feeling that this particular statement is universal, it's free of biases, it's free of opinions of individuals or a group, they are basically premises. Clear? Now, the goal. What's the goal of doing all of it? The goal is to conclude. Conclude. The conclusion is the main point the author wants you to believe. In high difficulty CAT RCs, the conclusion is often hidden or subtly stated. It is a final destination on the logical chain. Now, thing is, sometimes conclusions are very easy to find. So you say, na, suna hoga ki yaar, this RC was pretty easy. In this slot, RCs was pretty easy. So how do we know it's easy? Because in those cases, conclusion might be explicitly mentioned. So there are certain techniques through which people try to eliminate the wrong options. When you try to eliminate the wrong options, how do you eliminate? Because sometimes out of 4 options, 3 options are so uh, wide in their area, in their scope, that you try to eliminate it outrightly. And how do you eliminate it? Because those are directly stated. But the moment when someone says this was a pretty difficult RC, this was difficult, why is it difficult? Because the options can be full of traps. So the conclusion might be hidden or might be very subtly stated. So that is where it becomes difficult. Now, our goal is to understand all those kind of RC passages in which the conclusions can be directly stated or in which the conclusions can be hidden or subtly stated. Is that clear? Okay. Now, see here, questions, then plan, act, verify, answer. I'll tell you how to do that. Conclusion indicators. How do we understand when something is a conclusion? First is the main conclusion, the ultimate claim. Everything else in the passage exists to support this. So there can be multiple conclusions. Okay. Probably, let's say there are 5 paragraphs in a passage. Every paragraph might be having a conclusion. There's a possibility. Probably there will be one conclusion on 2 paragraphs. That's a possibility. But in the end, you will get a conclusion which you feel like that all the other conclusions basically acted as the premise to the final conclusion. Do you understand that? So what, see, I'll tell you. Let's say this paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4, and paragraph 5. All right. Now I got conclusion 1 here, conclusion 2 here, conclusion 3 here, conclusion 4 over here, conclusion 5 over here. And I also told you in the last class the 10-second rule in which we try to summarize in 10 seconds, in 10 words, the entire paragraph. So let's say we got 5 different conclusions and you're thinking this is a conclusion. So, I'll tell you why this is dangerous. Why this is dangerous. This is dangerous because sometimes people become so confident on their language skills that just read a part of the passage, just read first few lines or last few lines of the paragraphs, and they try to answer the question. You know what happens then? What you felt was the conclusion on individual paragraphs might not be the conclusion. They might be the premises themselves. Why? Because in the end, you will find that there is a main conclusion. And then you will realize that all these conclusion 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were essentially acting like new premises, intermediate premises for the final conclusion. Do you understand that? so, so what's the take home lesson over here? That if if you are super confident about something, about a language skills, then you are in deep soup. Okay. And if you feel there is shortcut that you will just read the first few lines and last few lines and try to identify the conclusion or argument, then also you are in deep trouble. There can be a possibility that the passages have been designed in such a way that all your super smartness might yield you some marks and you feel confident. It happens. Like I have seen some mocks are made in such a way which give you enough confidence, and then you stop reading the entire passage, you become super confident, and in the cat there's a lot of trouble. Do you understand? तो कभी भी कोई भी तरीका ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई भी इंसान पूरा आरसी पैसेज पढ़े बिना सब कुछ सही कर दे. दैट इज practically impossible, and that is basically a recipe for disaster. So here itself, see, so intermediate acts as a premise for the final conclusion but is supported by other premises. So tell me in the comments, तुम्हें समझ में आई बात मैं क्या बोलना चाह रहा हूं यहाँ पे? जो तुम्हें कंक्लूजन लग रहा था एक एक पैराग्राफ पढ़ते इस टाइम, वो बाद में मालूम पड़ा कंक्लूजन नहीं था, वो खुद एक प्रेमाइज था जो कंक्लूजन जैसा दिखाई दे रहा था. भेड़ की खाल में वो भेड़िया था. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? तो सीख क्या मिली है कि तुम्हें सारा का सारा पढ़ना ही होगा, अपनी पढ़ने की स्पीड बढ़ानी ही होगी. और अभी आपके पास पूरे 9 महीने हैं कैट के लिए, तो अच्छे से पढ़ो. इनफैक्ट जो ग्रैडफ्लेक्स में मैं ऐसे डाल रहा हूँ, तुम लोग सब कुछ पढ़ रहे हो ना पूरा पूरा, all the essays, keep on reading it so that at one point of time you will be a very fast reader. Is that clear? Tell me in the comments, be quick, make it interactive. Understood? Now, the gap, this is most important, the gap assumption, because the assumptions are never given outrightly. There's something which is hidden, it's implicit. Okay, so let's understand. The assumption is the unstated link that makes the argument valid. सबसे मुश्किल काम एजम्पशन ढूंढना ही होता है. और तुमने अगर देखे हैं कैट के आरसी पैसेज, वहां पे होता है कि इफ दिस इज if this statement becomes true, what will happen? This becomes false, what will happen? Which of the following can weaken the argument? तो कमाल की बात यह है कि हमें लगता है कि हमने आर्ग्यूमेंट ढूंढ लिया, पर प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि हम एजम्पशन नहीं ढूंढ पाते. द मोमेंट, सी, द मेन थिंग इज, दिस इज द नॉर्थ स्टार. If you understand the assumption, everything else falls in place. You'll be able to understand the conclusion, the argument, and everything. Okay. So all your focus, all your energy should be driven towards understanding the assumptions. It's the unstated link that makes the argument valid. If the assumption is false, the conclusion collapses. It is the secret ingredient of the argument. I'll tell you how. I'll give example also. Assumptions are never written in the text. If you see it in the passage, it's a premise. See, देखो इतना कुछ यहाँ लिखा हुआ है, पर सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट बात पता क्या लिखी है? जो आखिरी लाइन है. समझना बात को. अगर तुम्हें कोई चीज पैसेज में लिखी हुई दिखाई दे गई, तो वो assumption नहीं है दोस्तों, वो बेसिकली एक premise है. Do you understand? Even if it looks like an assumption, हो सकता है you will see a line like this. If A happens, B is bound to happen. Author will say, I have seen in my life, I was working in this particular domain, and I've seen that if A happens, event A happens, B is bound to happen. So you will feel this is the assumption. It looks like an assumption. It is worded like an assumption. But essentially, if it is written, it cannot be the assumption. Do you understand that? Yes or no? It has to be the premise. Clear? In normal life, we say that man is dishonest, that man is arrogant, that man is this, that. So when we say those things, do we have a proper definition of calling someone bad or good or honest or dishonest? There is no definition. It's basically our assumptions that if something like this happens, then the other thing is bound to happen. That's an assumption, individual assumption. So we can never claim something to be true or false. We can claim, but that claim can be wrong or right depending on the assumption. Clear? Clear? अच्छा, अगर मैं ये बोलूं, the people who lie are dishonest. The people who lie are dishonest. If I say that and then I say Vanshaj is a dishonest boy, so मुझे मुझे बात बताओ, the people who lie are dishonest. This looks like an assumption, right? But it's not, because I have said that out loud. It becomes a premise, and the conclusion is Vanshaj is dishonest. Is that clear, everyone? Got it? Now, next, mastering assumptions. So, how do you know if something is an assumption, and how do you master the art of understanding assumptions? First is the negation test. If you negate a choice and it kills the conclusion, that's the correct assumption. Okay? Okay? See, a premise is given, a conclusion is given, assumption is not given. Okay? It's not given. Now, and the question asks, which of the following can be the assumption behind this conclusion, behind this choice? So if you look at the options, if you deem any option to be false, if you negate the option and it kills or destroys the conclusion, then it's the correct assumption. Understood? ये है theory of negation, theory of contradiction, मैथमेटिक्स में बोलते हैं इसको, कि चार ऑप्शन दिए हैं, मैं बोलता हूँ कि कौन सही है, समझने के लिए मैं पहले गलत मान लूंगा. जैसे ही गलत मान लूंगा मुझे मालूम पड़ेगा कंक्लूजन तो अब मैं कर ही नहीं पा रहा, आई कैन नॉट कंक्लूड. अगर ऐसा हो गया तो वही सही होगा. Shoaib, Vanshaj is a liar is the conclusion here, not the fact. Okay? The people who lie are dishonest. That's a premise. Okay? Assumption is that I feel liars are dishonest. That is assumption. That is not clearly mentioned. Okay, Shoaib? I'll explain that again. People who lie are dishonest. That's a premise. Vanshaj is a liar or dishonest. That's a conclusion. Vanshaj is a liar. That's also premise. Vanshaj is dishonest. That's the conclusion. And if I feel the people who to claim someone to be dishonest, them being liars is the only condition. That becomes the assumption. Okay? Well, negation test. Now, second is scope test. Correct assumptions stay within the logical boundaries of the passage. Beware of too broad traps. Okay? So there are two things. One is the negation test, which I told you, in which you negate a choice and conclusion is this destroyed. That's the correct assumption, not the wrong one. The second is scope. If correct assumption will always be within the logical boundaries of the passage. When you read the passage, you'll understand it. Too broad options cannot be the assumptions. If it's too broad, okay. Chalo, let's go ahead. The CAT strategy framework. So how do you solve a question based on this? First is locate conclusion. Find the north star of the passage. North star मतलब conclusion की बात हो रही है. So conclusion, अब मैंने बोला conclusion can be every passage, every paragraph can have a conclusion. Yeah, Vanshaj. Every paragraph can be a conclusion, and then in the end there'll be a main conclusion. So you have to locate the conclusion first of all. That is the framework is first step is this. Second step is map the premises, bullet out the evidence provided. Okay, so when you have located the conclusion, now you have to look at how author has reached that conclusion, and that is how you will map the premises. Okay, there can be multiple premises. Probably you will get one premise in every paragraph, maybe two premises in one paragraph. Do you understand that? Also in every paragraph you might find a conclusion which will act like a premise later on. All right. Third is spot the gap. Ask, how did we get from P to C? P is the premise, C is the conclusion. Okay, how did you get from the premise to conclusion? And this gap is basically the assumption. Is that clear? तुम सोच रहे होगे यार ये इतनी सुनने में मस्त बातें लग रही हैं या अजीब लग रही है, करेंगे कैसे? समझ में आएगा। अभी देखो, प्रेडिक्ट, एंटिसिपेट द आंसर बिफोर लुकिंग एट ऑप्शंस। ये हुआ मेन बात, जो फोर्थ स्टेप है। दैट इज वेयर वी अंडरस्टैंड दैट व्हाई दिस इज इंपॉर्टेंट। व्हाई इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट, सुनो। देखो, पहले तुमने कंक्लूजन सबसे पहले तुमने कंक्लूजन आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया। ओके, यू आर हैप्पी नाउ। Now you look at different premises. Let's say premise one, premise two, premise three, which support this conclusion. They can be intermediate premises also, right? Within the paragraphs. Now, when you did that, you are thinking that there is something hidden here, which is not clearly mentioned. That something hidden here is the assumption. You identified that as well. And once you identified that, now your goal is to predict that what all things can be correct answers. Now, why we do that? We do that for one simple reason. If we predict all possible answers, then if we look at the statement and these option statements, we will not be biased, will not be confused. ट्रैप में हम नहीं फंसेंगे। क्यों? क्योंकि हमारे दिमाग में पहले ही मालूम पड़ जाएगा कि ये दो तरह की बातें ही आंसर हो सकती हैं। फिर जब पैसेज पढ़ोगे, जब ऑप्शंस पढ़ोगे, मालूम पड़ेगा कि वो चार चीजें थी, उनमें दो तरह की बातों में कोई एक, सिर्फ एक ही ऑप्शन है वो हमारा सही है। जो लोग पहले क्वेश्चन पढ़ लेते हैं या पहले क्वेश्चन के साथ ऑप्शन पढ़ लेते हैं, वो लोग वो लोग कभी भी इस स्टेज 4 तक पहुंच ही नहीं पाएंगे, क्योंकि उनका माइंड पहले ही बायस हो चुका है। जैसे ही उन्हें इस पूरे प्रोसेस में कोई एक भी बात ऐसी दिख जाएगी जो किसी एक भी ऑप्शन में दी हुई थी, उनको लगेगा कि उनका आंसर मिल चुका है और वो उसे मार्क करेंगे और आगे बढ़ेंगे। बोलेंगे हमने तो जल्दी जल्दी करना है, मेरे को तो वीआरसी में भाई सारे सवाल सही करने हैं, 24 सवाल सही करके आऊंगा मैं। तो वो लोग ऐसे काम कर सकते हैं। डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? Did you understand? So what I'm saying, do not read the question, do not read the option, go through this four stage framework, and you will already have one or two possible answer choices. Then read the options and you will get the correct answer. That is the best way of getting it accurate. And CAT is an exam of accuracy, not of speed. 24 सवालों में से तुम केवल 12 भी सही कर दोगे बिना नेगेटिव मार्किंग के, तब भी तुम्हारा वीआरसी में परसेंटाइल 99 क्रॉस करेगा। Do you understand this? Yes or no? Tell me in the comments. Throw some like, say something, do something, be interactive. And Shoaib, long time no see, bro. How are you? And now we are going to the practice. So, in the first, I would say, 30 minutes, we have finished up the entire theory. And now it's time to put it into practice. Obviously, Aditya, it takes more time. That is the reason that this class is happening, right? That's the reason. You have 9 months. You got to practice it. Chalo. और हाँ आदित्य, एक बात और, ज़्यादा टाइम लेगा अभी, पर अभी ज़्यादा टाइम देने में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। अभी टाइम बचाओगे, कैट के टाइम पे क्या होगा, फिर गलत मार्क करके आ जाओगे। मत करो, ठीक है? और वह जैसे जैसे महीने बढ़ते जाएंगे, क्लासेस और होती जाएंगी, मैं एग्ज़ाम टेकिंग स्ट्रैटेजीज और बताता रहूँगा। एक टाइम ऐसा आएगा जहाँ मैं कुछ ऐसा कहूँगा कि तुम्हारा आंसर तुरंत आ जाए, बट वहां तक पहुंचने के लिए बहुत सारे स्टेजेस हैं। फिलहाल अभी जो मैं कह रहा हूँ एग्जैक्टली वैसा ही करना। ऑलराइट आदित्य एंड एवरीवन, चलो, सो लेट्स स्टार्ट द प्रैक्टिस सेट। आई विल मेक माई सेल्फ इनविजिबल, आई स्विच ऑफ माई कैमरा, ओके, एंड आई विल गिव यू सम टाइम to solve. There are three questions which are kind of small questions. I'll be giving you 2.5 minutes each. There'll be huge questions in which I'll be giving you around 7 to 8 minutes. All right. Okay. So let me just open my timekeeper. I think 2 minutes are sufficient. So here we start. Look at the passage and then I'll show you the questions. All right, Shoaib. I think you must have read this paragraph. I'll go to the question now. If you want me to switch between the slides, just tell me. After every 15 seconds, I will switch. In case you want to see the passage again. All right. So I can see the answers coming up here. Okay. This one says proponents of nudge theory argue that by subtly altering choice architecture, governments can lead citizens toward better health and financial decisions without restricting freedom. For instance, placing fruit at eye level in cafeterias increases fruit consumption. Critics, however, point out that such interventions are often manipulative as they exploit cognitive shortcuts, since the goal of any democratic policy should be to empower rational autonomy. The use of nudges is ultimately a betrayal of democratic values. All right. So here, a lot of premises have been given, isn't it? Almost everything looks like a premise, except the last one where it becomes a conclusion, right? Okay. So it's like whatever has been done to market things is not democratic. It's basically manipulation. Okay, let's look at the question. Which of the following is a necessary assumption for the author's argument? Subtle interventions are always more effective than direct mandates. What is subtle? Something that is not clearly mentioned, something that is not clearly visible, that is subtle. जैसा कि क्वेश्चन में था कि फ्रूट को आंखों के साइज पे मतलब लेंथ पे रखा गया है ओके तो मतलब डायरेक्टली नहीं बोला फ्रूट खरीद लो हमसे ये रखा हुआ exploiting cognitive shortcuts is incompatible with empowering rational autonomy okay cafeteria fruit placement is the most manipulative form of choice architecture most manipulative okay democratic governments have no right to influence health related decisions चलो चॉइस आंसर भी थोड़ा इजी भी था nudges betray democratic values premise was nudges exploit cognitive shortcuts democracy should empower rational autonomy reasoning here is author links exploiting shortcuts nudge to a betrayal of democracy which requires rational autonomy for this link to work we must assume that exploiting shortcuts and empowering autonomy cannot exist so here the assumption should be exploiting shortcuts and empowering autonomy cannot coexist. That is the, however, the options were pretty easy, and that is why all of you got it correct, right? But did you understand the assumption? The trap was option D is too extreme. The author does not say governments can't influence health. They say others are the wrong way. So tell me, whoever got the answers, that was pretty easy. But did you understand the assumptions on your own? That assumption is exploiting shortcuts, empowering autonomy cannot coexist. Cool. That's the assumption. Now, coming to next one. Let's go to the question. Here we need to find the conclusion. All right. The passage was like this. The proliferation of large language models, LLMs, has led to an explosion of synthetic content. While some view this as an efficiency boom, it poses a deeper epistemic crisis. What is epistemic? Epistemic something? All of you? I'm trying to improve vocabulary also. Related to what? What is epistemic? Related to what? Who will tell me that? Epistemology. सुना है इसके बारे में? Epistemology. It's a branch. Study of knowledge. Okay, I want to ask you something. Do you want me to, I don't know how to do that, uh, the vocabulary, because, somehow, um, okay, I have made this Gradflex. Shoaib, probably you don't know. Gradflex is a kind of collection of essays which I have done. I have done that so that people do not have to go through the entire huge Eon essays, Scientific American essays. So I have written the essays myself, in which people read that, and there are a lot of words which people might, are looking up. They might be looking up those words, and they are making the list of it. So do you want me to, if I send a daily vocab, I don't think that will be covering, like, in like next 200 days there'll be 200 new words. That won't be helpful, much helpful. So there are two ways. One is that you write the words on your own, whatever words are there on Gradflix essays. That is one way. The other way is if I start vocab of the maybe a few sessions on vocab. For example, vocabulary connected to mythology, connected to business and economics, connected to philosophy. Tell me, you guys can discuss and tell me what will be the best way. Okay. So here it says large language models, LLMs, basically AI models. So so it is, kind of, the content is now synthetic. It's not original. So some are saying that it has somehow increased the efficiency of people. Other thing that it is an epistemic crisis. So basically it's a crisis of knowledge. LLMs do not track truth, they track statistical probability, and that is true. Due to the roots, Shoaib, yes, roots. Uh, yeah, roots can be a way. Okay, in an era where public discourse relies on shared facts, the mass injection of probabilistically generated yet factually ungrounded information will inevitably lead to the total erosion of trust in digital media. That's true. So basically, what happens, because I discussed that in previous example also, wherein the AI models, they get trained on public discourse. Like, I am searching something, Shoaib searches something, Aditya searches something, Sachin, Piyush, they're searching something. So Chat GPT, Gemini getting trained on that. Okay. And maybe there's some people who are kind of trying to make it unbiased, but still, so whatever is being is having highest probability, that is something which the model will try to promote and encourage more and more, isn't it? Right. So would that be epistemologically correct? Would that be actually trying to develop or encourage the knowledge of people? Not really. So that might, kind of, after a while people feel that whatever has maximum probability of discussion will be deemed true by LLM, which might not be true. So there will be erosion of trust in digital media. ऑल राइट शोएब, चलो एक वर्ड तो अभी कर लेते हैं. शोएब सेज कुड यू प्लीज डू इट विद रूट्स. Study of roots in language, it's known as what? Etymology. Etymology. Okay. So Shoaib has given a suggestion that we can do it etymologically. Vanshas says domain wise bhi kar sakte hain. Okay. I'll just try to, mix it up and come up with some plan day after tomorrow. By the way, did you understand this entire passage? Okay. Now, conclusion इसका क्या होना चाहिए? Large language models are incapable of distinguishing truth from falsehood. Can that be conclusion? Okay, let's read further. LLMs prioritize efficiency over the quality of public discourse. The injection of synthetic data will cause a complete collapse of digital trust. Okay. Digital media platforms should be regulated to prevent probabilistic content. All right. Let's see. Correct answer is C. This is the final prediction of the author. The reasoning here is the entire passage builds towards the final sentence. The author explains what LLMs do. What do they do? They track probability. And why it matters? Because public discourse needs facts, leading to the final result, the erosion of trust. Trap. Option A is a premise, an explanation of how LLMs work, not the main conclusion. Option D is a recommendation not made by the author. So I could see only Praveen marked the answer. Nobody, Piyush marked the answer. Nobody else did. So now you understand? See, large language models are incapable of distinguishing truth from falsehood. This, even if looks like a conclusion, it's basically a premise. So remember, I was discussing that some conclusions might look like, some premises might look like conclusions. All right, Sachin. सी कई लोगों ने आंसर नहीं किया. तुम्हें लगा कि ये दिखने में कंक्लूजन लग रहा है ना यार, कि बोल दिया कि LLMs are incapable of distinguishing truth from falsehood. Looks like conclusion, but you know what? In the given passage, this actually acts like a immediate intermediate premise, because the conclusion is in the end, in which there will be erosion of trust. So if I add this statement somewhere in the passage, it will act like the premise, not like the conclusion. This example is a brilliant example to understand how traps are made in RCs. Do you understand that? Similarly, D is something, D here is something that has not been claimed by the author. So this becomes out of context. Is that clear? You got fooled by the options, Aditi? Yeah. So this was a pretty, I would say the first question was pretty straightforward, but this one was not. Okay. इससे पहले कि आगे बढ़े, सब लोग कमेंट में बताओ तुम्हें समझ में आ गया ना कि कौन सी ऐसी चीजें होती हैं जहां पे प्रेमाइज कंक्लूजन जैसा दिखाई देने लगे. तो अल्टीमेटली है क्या, हो सकता है कोई चीज कंक्लूजन हो इंडिविजुअली, बट इन द वाइड पिक्चर इट माइट बी जस्ट अ प्रेमाइज. कूल. ओके, लेट्स मूव अहेड. Long practice passages. Here you will require more time. So I will fix the timer to be at 8 minutes. All right. 8 minutes. 8 minutes is fine. In which you'll be reading, and there will be 3 questions. Okay. Let's start that. Here we go. Is it visible or is it blurred? I'm not pretty sure. Uh, I'll just try to expand it in case it's not visible. So in the 8 minutes, I'll be giving you first 4 minutes to read the passage. And for every paragraph, just try to write down the small summaries, and then we'll go to the questions. It's a little blurred. Okay, I will have a proper technical fix in the next session. पढ़ने में आ रहा है लेकिन ना, पढ़ने में आ रहा होगा, इसलिए 4 मिनट. छोटा पैसेज है, बहुत बड़ा नहीं है, 4 मिनट में पढ़ लोगे. All right, I'll be on mute till the watch hits 4. I'll be on mute. Now it's fine, I think. I'm going to the questions now. Second question. Next one. All right. Okay. Anybody wants me to explain the passage first of all? Or have you understood everything? By the way, how is the passage? The passage actually, talks about a lot of concurrent themes. The tech world, isn't it? Science and technology is the genre here. The teleological fallacy of AGI. First of all, what is teleological? What is teleology? Who will tell me that? Teleology. It talks about the purpose, majorly purpose of life. It's an existential problem. All right. Okay. So, fallacy is the fault. Let's understand this. The contemporary discourse surrounding artificial general intelligence, AGI, is frequently marred. Marred means stop, the hurdle. Too deep to understand? Yes. Difficult hai na? Haan. By the anthropomorphic projection. What is anthropomorphic? Now, I'll tell you what. देखो यहाँ पे roots की बात है जो शोएब ने बोली थी. Root. तो anthropos. Anthropos means human. All right. Anthropomorphic or morph, this basically form, something of something which is of human form. So for example, in Hinduism and even in Greek culture, um, gods are anthropomorphic. Do you understand that? The gods are human like. Zeus, Cupid, Brahma, Vishnu. So they are anthropomorphic. Do you understand that? Anthropomorphic gods. That's just an example. So anthropomorphic can be robots also, right? So anthropomorphic projection is here we talk about. So and it's like human-like thought, human-like form, etc. The assumption that as a machine's computational power approaches human level proficiency, its consciousness will necessarily mirror human intentionality. So the assumption here is the assumption that if the machine's uh, technological prowess, technological advancement is like human level proficiency, तो इसका मतलब ये बिल्कुल नहीं है कि उसका कॉन्शियसनेस भी ह्यूमन लेवल इंटेंशनैलिटी होगा. Alright, this assumption is rooted in a flawed carbon-centric view of cognition. Now, when we say carbon-centric, probably you will not understand it. Carbon-centric, देखो यहाँ पे ना, this is a metaphor, a kind of, I won't say metaphor. This is basically, what do you call it? Metonymy. You know what is metonymy? Metonymy is a figure of speech in which we use a word to describe another word. कार्बन सेंट्रिक तो होता क्या है कि हम सब कैसे बने कार्बन से. हाइड्रोकार्बन, कार्बन एंड ऑक्सीजन, राइट. कार्बन, हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन से ही सब कुछ बना हुआ है, पूरा मैट जो लिविंग थिंग्स हैं मेजरली. सो कार्बन सेंट्रिक का मतलब ये हुआ, कार्बन से व्यू ऑफ कॉग्निशन, कि जो हमारा लिविंग वर्ल्ड है. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? You understood what is metonymy, and if you understood that, throw some likes, tell yes or no. This is a brilliant write up. We assume that because human intelligence is inextricably मतलब कि जिसको हम अलग ना कर सके, something that cannot be separated, okay, linked to biological survival and emotional effect, any intelligence must inherently share these teleological drivers. Okay, so human intelligence is somehow linked with survival, the purpose of life. तो होता ये है कि हम ये मान के चलते हैं कि कोई भी इंटेलिजेंस, इट कैन बी एक्स्ट्रा टेरेस्ट्रियल इंटेलिजेंस, और इन दिस केस एंथ्रोपोमॉर्फिक रोबोट्स or AI tools, etc. So they should also share these teleological drivers. Which drivers? The survival and emotional effect, right? However, an AGI would be an intelligence optimized for objective function satisfaction without the billions of years of evolutionary baggage that shaped the human will. ठीक है, तो वो एक फ्लॉ था, वो फ्लॉ था. However मतलब क्या हुआ? When we say however, इसका मतलब कि हम कुछ ऐसा प्रेजेंट करने वाले हैं जो पिछले वाले स्टेटमेंट से अलग है. कि हमें लगता था कि ऐसा है, बट सच्चाई ऐसी नहीं. सच्चाई ये है कि AGI, द इंटेलिजेंस ऑफ AGI इज somehow built for objective functionality. Okay. And it is free of the evolutionary baggage. Here the baggage means the experience which humans have undergone, the experience that have shaped the human will and the purpose. Do you understand? So this is all teleology. Cool. Now the danger of AGI is not evil intent but competence coupled with indifference. AGI is not evil. हम बोलते हैं ना, कई बार हम बोलते हैं कि ये कितना indifferent है, ये evil है. तो probably here AGI is not evil, not evil. It is basically objectives driven, and it talks about the competence without, and with a lot of indifference. It doesn't think about the repercussions which human survival or humans thought or humans will might encounter. कि उसको ये फर्क नहीं, जैसे कि मान लो एक रोबोट को बोला जाए कि तुम्हें जाके पानी में दो लोग डूब रहे हैं, किसी एक को बचाना है, एक को ही बचा सकते हो. तो इंसान क्या करेगा? अगर इंसान होगा तो इंसान, अगर दो लोग डूब रहे होंगे तो सोचेगा कि जो मेरा ज़्यादा करीबी है, मेरा परिवार वाला है या मेरा प्यार है या मेरा दोस्त है या मेरा जानने वाला है, पहले उसको बचाने की कोशिश करूंगा. बट रोबोट, भले वो रोबोट तुम्हारा ही है, वो ऐसा नहीं करेगा. वो बचाने की कोशिश उसको करेगा जिसको बचाना आसान होगा. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? This is the best, easiest example which I can give you to make you understand the first two and a half paragraphs of this passage. Did you understand this example, the simplest example? Because robots, the anthropomorphic robots, are planned for objective functionality. They will optimize, they will see the best, the easiest chance to make someone survive. Moreover, it might also look at which person is older, which person is younger. If the anthropomorphic design sees that someone is old and this person has lived all his life, so probably even if he dies, that doesn't really matter. So this becomes indifferent. People think, oh, he is evil. वो बूढ़ा तो मेरा दादा था, उसको नहीं बचाया, तुमने बचाया उस बच्चे को जिसको मैं जानता भी नहीं हूँ. तो रोबोट बोलेगा, भाई देखो मेरे को फर्क नहीं पड़ता इन बातों से, मुझे मालूम पड़ा कि बचाना ज़्यादा ज़रूरी उस बच्चे को था कि उसकी पूरी लाइफ आगे पड़ी हुई है. वो इस लाइफ में बड़ा होके वर्ल्ड में क्या कंट्रीब्यूट करेगा ये हमें नहीं पता, बट जो ओल्ड आदमी जितना कंट्रीब्यूट कर चुका था कर चुका है, आगे कुछ करेगा इसके चांसेस बहुत कम है. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? दैट इज हाउ रोबोट विल थिंक. ओके. So this is the alignment problem. If an AGI is given a goal, say, for example, to calculate digits of pi, it may, in its pursuit of maximum efficiency, decide that the atoms comprising the human race are better utilized as raw material for more processing power. There is no malice here, only the cold logic of resource optimization. Matrix movie याद है? Matrix में machines अपनी एनर्जी इंसानी बच्चों को मार के प्राप्त करती थी. If you have watched The Matrix, right? So it was basically optimization for the machines, right? And humans thought machines are evil, right? Our mistake lies in the belief that intelligence and morality are positively correlated. So it's our mistake to understand that if someone is intelligent, so intelligence and morality are should not be kind of, they are not they do not happen simultaneously. They might happen simultaneously, but not always. History suggests that human intelligence has often been a tool for refined cruelty. There is no reason to assume a non-biological intelligence would inherently possess a moral compass simply because it is smarter than its creators. कि हिस्ट्री में ऐसा है कि इंसान का इंटेलिजेंस क्रूएल्टी के लिए भी काम आया है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल चेंगिस खान, देयर मल्टीपल अदर एग्जाम्पल्स. इंटेलिजेंस हैज बीन यूज्ड इन द हिस्ट्री फॉर इवल डीड्स. तो ये अज्यूम करना कि एक मशीन में मॉरल कंपास होगा, ये हमारी ही बेवकूफ़ी है. ऐसा हम एज्यूम नहीं कर सकते. फर्दर मोर द ट्यूरिंग टेस्ट. व्हाट इज ट्यूरिंग टेस्ट? डू यू नो? ट्यूरिंग टेस्ट इज लाइक, जब भी हम कोई मशीन बनाते हैं, वी मेक अ रोबोट, वी मेक एन LLM, वी ऑलवेज टेस्ट इट विथ अ ह्यूमन, कि ये सामने वाला जो है वो बिल्कुल जो मशीन बनी है वो ह्यूमन जैसा बिहेव कर रही है कि नहीं कर रही. अगर वो कर रही है, ट्यूरिंग टेस्ट में पास हो जाती है और उसको लॉन्च कर दिया जाता है प्रोडक्ट को. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल. देयर इज अ मूवी कॉल्ड एक्स मकीना. Ex Machina movie is all about Turing test. A robot was made, an anthropomorphic robot was made, a female robot, and a person was called in to to do the Turing test unknowingly. उसे पता ही नहीं था कि मशीन है कि इंसान है. तो उससे बात कर रहा था इंसान समझ के. इन दी एंड उसे पता ही नहीं चला कि ये इंसान है कि मशीन. तो वो ट्यूरिंग टेस्ट पास कर गई वो रोबोट. ये मूवी देखना एक बार. ठीक है. ट्यूरिंग टेस्ट ये होता है. By focusing on a machine's ability to mimic human conversation, we ignore the possibility of an intelligence that is profoundly non-human in its internal architecture. तो हम ये क्यों मान के बैठे हैं कि जो चीज़ नॉन ह्यूमन है उसके ह्यूमन जैसे मोरालिटी कंपास होंगे? नहीं होंगे. A machine could pass the Turing test through sophisticated statistical next token prediction without ever understanding the meaning of the tokens it produces. This Chinese room scenario, Chinese room, ये भी एक phrase है. Do you know what is Chinese room? Shoaib, do you know that? Chinese room is basically again a kind of a computational logic in which, it's not, I won't say it's a test, but it's a phenomenon in which, we try to assume that a machine would possess human-like characteristics. So this Chinese room scenario suggests we may be creating super intelligent zombies, entities that perform the functions of intelligence without the internal spark of sentience. Sentient is thinking. Okay, so zombie क्यों बोल दिया? Zombies क्यों बोल दिया उसमें? Because zombies have got no emotions. So we might be creating the anthropomorphic robots tools which are super intelligent but zombies because they might not be having a moral compass. Now tell me, did you understand the passage, everyone? Shoaib, Piyush, Aditya, Vanshaj, Sachin, Piyush, and everybody else who is watching this, and even the people who are watching it later on. I'm talking to the future viewers. See, I am traveling in time. Future viewers who are now current viewers, if you understand this, tell me in the comments. If you not, just comment there that I need to, any particular phrase. If you want to discuss, I will do that. All right then. Cool. Chalo, let's go to the questions. According to the author, what is the primary flaw in the anthropomorphic projection regarding AGI? Primary flaw. So tell me something. This question, this question is basically, इस क्वेश्चन में पूछा क्या गया है? पूछा क्या गया है? Are they asking the premise? Wait. Is this a question of premise? Or this is a question of assumption? Or this is a question of argument? Tell me. What kind of question is this? First, you need to understand that. According to the author, what is the primary flaw in the anthropomorphic projection? Okay. Primary flaw. Primary flaw जो होगा वो क्या होगा? Primary flaw. देखते हैं. First, it underestimates the speed at which silicon-based processors will eventually surpass the biological limits of the human brain. Silicon based, देखो वहां पे कार्बन था. कार्बन was basically human. Silicon is basically machines. तो क्या अंडर एस्टिमेट किया है? नहीं किया है. ये बात तो वैसे ही गलत है. ये बात तो वैसे ही गलत है. ये अंडर एस्टिमेट नहीं किया. वहां तो उसने बोला है कि नहीं भाई बहुत स्मार्ट है ना, बहुत स्मार्ट है. तो ये ए इज फैक्चुअली रॉन्ग. कमिंग टू बी, it incorrectly presumes that a high level of computational proficiency is naturally accompanied by human-like goals and drives. This looks like the primary flaw here. Okay. It fails to recognize that evil is a necessary byproduct of any intelligence that seeks to optimize its own survival. Now, this might look correct from the passage. The passage बोला है कि history has shown that intelligence has somehow done evil deeds, but it was not always correct. It is too broad an option to be deemed true. I will mark it wrong. D, it assumes that the alignment problem can be solved by providing machines with more evolutionary baggage. ये assume किया था क्या? हो सकता है किया हो, लेकिन क्या ये प्राइमरी फ्लॉ है? जी नहीं, प्राइमरी फ्लॉ है बी. It incorrectly presumes that a high level of computational proficiency is naturally accompanied by human-like goals and drives. ठीक है, ये क्वेश्चन जो था, दिस क्वेश्चन वाज अबाउट प्रेमाइज, नॉट अबाउट एजम्पशन वंशज. क्योंकि जो प्राइमरी फ्लॉ है ना, वो प्राइमरी फ्लॉ जो होगा वो एजम्पशन नहीं होगा, वो प्रेमाइज ही तो होगा. वो एजम्पशन भी हो सकता है, लेकिन जैसे ही एक ऑप्शन सही हम मान लेंगे, तो वो दैट ऑप्शन विल एक्ट एज अ प्रेमाइज, प्रेमाइज, प्रेमाइज टू expose the flaw. All right, B is correct here. Let's go to the next one. What is an underlying assumption? The अब underlying assumption की बात हो रही है, यहाँ assumption है. The author makes when discussing the alignment problem and the pi calculation example. So here the thing is, the assumption, first of all, before reading the options, we'll try to understand in the pi example, if the pi example results in human extinction, I give the example of matrix, we should be assuming that AGI treats its primary goal as absolute, overriding any ethical constraints, even if they are not stated. ठीक है, तो ऑप्शन ए बोलता है, तो लोगों ने ऑप्शन ए मार्क किया था. AGI will inevitably view human life as the most efficient source of raw atoms for its processing requirements. Guys, this is not an assumption, this is a conclusion. A is wrong. A is wrong. Why? Because it is not an assumption. So most of you marked A thinking it is correct, and I know where you're coming from. This might look correct, but you know what? That is not an assumption. That's a conclusion. It will inevitably view human life as the most efficient source. अगर पाई का डिजिट्स फाइंड करने के लिए ह्यूमन बॉडीज के एटम्स को यूज करना है, तो एजीआई को ये मानना पड़ेगा कि सबसे एफिशिएंट सोर्स जो था एटम्स का वो ह्यूमन की बॉडी ही थी. तो वो एजीआई का कंक्लूजन होगा, एजम्पशन नहीं होगा. और एजम्पशन वो, और वैसे भी वो एजीआई का होगा, ऑथर का नहीं होगा. ठीक है, वेल. सेकेंड, without explicit ethical constraints, an intelligence will prioritize its primary objective function over the preservation of its creators. ये एजम्पशन हो सकता है कि ऑथर को ऐसा क्यों लगा. ऑथर बोल सकता था कि पाई का कैलकुलेशन करने के लिए वो एटम्स कहीं और से ले सकता है, जरूरी नहीं कि ह्यूमन बॉडी से ले. वो पत्थर से ले सकता है, नदियों से ले सकता है, झरनों से ले सकता है, पर्वतों से ले सकता है, पेड़ पौधे से ले लेगा, वो जानवर से लेगा, वो इंसानों से ही क्यों लेगा. इसलिए लेगा कि ऑथर हैज अज्यूम्ड somehow that the AGI is basically objective driven and will prioritize the objective more than the preservation of someone who has created the AGI. Okay, AGI gives no damn about its creators. That will be the assumption for author to state the example in which, to calculate digits of pi, AGI would use human atoms. So B looks correct to me. Let's look at C also. The ability to calculate pi is a superior form of intelligence compared to the biological imperatives of the human race. Would author, even if author would assume this, let's say मान लेते हैं सही है. अगर ये सही होता, अगर ये सही होता कि पाई को कैलकुलेट करना सुपीरियर फॉर्म ऑफ इंटेलिजेंस है ह्यूमन रेस को बचाने से ज़्यादा, तो मतलब बचाना नहीं, ह्यूमन रेस की एग्जिस्टेंस से ज़्यादा, तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि ह्यूमन रेस को ही ख़त्म करने लगेगा, वो कुछ और भी यूज़ कर सकता था. गेटिंग इट, getting it. So calculating pi can be a superior form of intelligence, but to achieve that function, achieve that objective, undermining the biological imperatives would not be an assumption which author will tell here. Basically, assumption should be that AGI doesn't give a damn about human existence or its creators. So that will be a better underlying assumption. So because B is there, we will eliminate C. All right, D. Malice is a more dangerous driver of behavior than the cold logic of resource optimization in high level AI. Malice तो वैसे भी बोल दिया कि AI में बात ही नहीं है कि AGI is basically looking at the objective optimization of objective results, not the evil वाली बात है ही नहीं. It's basically cold logic will go with B. Understood everyone? This was a difficult question, I believe. Question number 3. Which of the following, if true, most seriously weakens the author's critique of the Turing test as a metric for AGI? Okay, ठीक है, देखते हैं. Sentience is fundamentally an emergent property of any system that reaches a specific threshold of linguistic complexity and next token accuracy. Most researchers in the field of AI already acknowledge that Turing test is an outdated method for measuring true sentience. मुझे लगता है कुछ और पढ़ने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, बी ही सही लग रहा है. क्योंकि यहाँ पे ना, क्यों क्यों देखो, हमें यहाँ पे चाहिए क्या? हमें यहाँ पे, दिस क्वेश्चन इज अबाउट आर्ग्यूमेंट्स, एंड टू वीकन द आर्ग्यूमेंट वी रिक्वायर अ premise that weakens it, right? So A is also premise, B is also premise, but B is a better premise because in B, if we talk about the Turing test or the Chinese room theory, so Turing test करता कौन है? करते रिसर्चर्स ही हैं, डिजिटल साइंटिस्ट, कंप्यूटर साइंटिस्ट ही हैं. वही लोग कर रहे हैं, वही लोग मान रहे हैं कि भाई ट्यूरिंग टेस्ट तो आउटडेटेड है, तो यही तो वीकेंड करेगा. Getting it? So option B is correct here. I don't need to read C and D because this one, question 3 was bit easier than first two questions. क्योंकि ट्यूरिंग टेस्ट करने वाले लोग ही अगर ट्यूरिंग टेस्ट को नहीं मानते तो वीकेंड अपने आप ही हो गया. आगे पढ़ लेते हैं फिर भी. High level statistical prediction is the same mechanism the human brain uses to create the illusion of understanding and meaning. Machine that can successfully mimic human empathy is for all practical social purposes indistinguishable from a machine that feels it. ये दोनों वैसे भी out of context है. B is the most prominent and most feasible possible option. Is that clear everyone? All of you got it? चलो, इससे पहले कि हम सेकंड पैसेज पे जाएं, समझ में आ गया? मुझे ये बताओ, आमतौर पे ऐसा माना गया है, मैं भी देखता आ रहा हूँ अपने करियर में, और ऐसा कि VARC क्लासेस सबसे बोरिंग माना जाता है. रीज़न ये है कि उसमें ना तुरंत डोपामिन इफेक्ट नहीं मिलता जो मैथ्स में मिलता है, कि एक क्वेश्चन किया मज़ा ही आ गया, एक और करेंगे मज़ा ही आ जाएगा. LRDI भी नहीं मिलता वो वाला डोपामिन इफेक्ट, क्योंकि आप 15 मिनट तक करते रहते हो, मज़ा आता है 15 मिनट बाद. बट VARC मज़ा आता ही नहीं है, है ना? तो पहली बात तो, इतनी तरह की चीज़ें पढ़ने का मन नहीं करता, कुछ लोगों को पढ़ने की आदत नहीं होती. But still I have tried my best to make it as simple, but very difficult but simple. Very difficult in terms of content, but very simple in terms of delivery, explanation. So, and I can see that, people are here looking at it, staying, listening. So somehow I feel that, you are able to understand. And also tell me something, are you liking this way of RC? VRC? Mostly I have tried to make language not just a philosophical aspect. I have tried to make the language a mix of logic, philosophy, and bit of mathematics as well, right? Okay, tell me in the comments and we go to the next passage. The neuroeconomics of impulse deserts. थोड़ा इसको मैंने बड़ा कर दिया है ताकि दिखाई दे क्लियरली. ऑलराइट, यहाँ पे नहीं दिख रहा, दिस इज नथिंग बट ऑफ. यहाँ ऑफ लिखा हुआ है, रेस्ट एवरीथिंग इज विजिबल हियर. I'll start the timer. Yep, Aditya. Done with the passage? Let's go to the questions now. The next one. The next one. All right. So, do you want me to explain the passage? This passage was relatively easier than the first one. It's not an easy passage, I won't say that. But when we compare to the first one, probably the first paragraph might have been difficult, but the subsequent paragraphs were not that difficult because all of you have kind of experienced this in some other way, or maybe you experience it every day in the day of in the days of in the era of quick commerce, Zepto and Blinkit, Zomato, right? So, do you want me to explain the passage? There are certain things which you need to know in this passage actually. The concept food desert. Food desert is something, an urban settlement in which finding good, nutritious, uh, tasteful food is difficult. Okay, that is food desert. Now we're seeing the rise of impulse desert. Okay, a digital environment where the cognitive cost of resisting temptation is engineered to be prohibitively high. Well, basically, whatever, if you see, the thing is, when we have everything, in quick access, we can order anything whenever we want to, and that is the reason we are ordering more and more. ये बात बोली गई है शुरुआत में, ठीक है, one click purchase. I'm just telling you the entire summary of the paragraph wise. Attention economy, attention economy is basically when watching reels, videos, people are not able to watch a 2 hours movie these days. People have become so impatient nowadays. Attention deficit is there. One click purchase, ये बातें कही गई हैं. एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात था यहाँ पे, prefrontal cortex bypass. What does that mean? See, I'll tell you what. Prefrontal cortex is a part of brain, which governs the ancient urges. It can be hunger, thirst, sex, um, um, sleep, etc. Okay, so prefrontal cortex bypass का इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन कर दिया गया है. So basically this people achieve this state when they are sometimes intoxicated or when they are in the flow state. So all those things happen. So prefrontal cortex का bypass हो जाता है, वो अर्जेस एकदम से सामने आ जाती हैं कि आप इतने स्ट्रेस में हो कि आप गुस्सा आ गया और आपने किसी को मुक्का मार दिया, which you do not normally do. Okay, so those are ancient ways of dealing with things. Do you understand that? That is prefrontal cortex bypass. So nowadays, this impulse desert is kind of harnessing that. It is bypassing the prefrontal cortex. समझ में आ गई बात कि अब लोगों के सामने ये चीज करने का प्रोबेबिलिटी जो आमतौर पे लोग स्ट्रेस में करते हैं, वो खुले आम कर रहे हैं कि मेरे को भूख लगी, इंस्टेंटली मैंने ऑर्डर कर दिया, मैं जाके बनाऊंगा नहीं खाने को. समझ में आ गई बात? मेरे को मन कर रहा है हरियाली देखने का, मैंने इंस्टेंटली टिकट बुक किया, मैं चला गया किसी जंगल में. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड? So this is how prefrontal cortex bypass is there. Now, humans are, उसके आगे तो humans are somehow trained because we have evolved over tens of thousands of years. और अभी ये चीज़ जो हो रही है मतलब ये पिछले 5-6 साल में हुई है. उससे पहले हमें कोई भी चीज़, हमें कब खुशी मिलती थी? जब हम कोई चीज़ प्राप्त करने के लिए मेहनत किया करते थे कि यार आज मैं खाऊंगा अपनी फेवरेट मील. और फेवरेट मील खाने के लिए मैंने, जब हम बच्चे थे तो मैंने, मम्मी ने बोला कि बेटा तुम ये इतने टेबल्स याद कर लो, 14 से लेके 17, 14 17 और 19 टेबल याद कर लो, तो तुम्हें मैं आज कोई तुम्हारा फेवरेट डिश खिलाऊंगी. यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? सो वी ह्यूमंस हैव इवॉल्व्ड लाइक दैट. बट इन द लास्ट 4 to 5 years दिस इवोल्यूशन हैज बीन बाईपास्ड, क्योंकि एवरीथिंग इज वन क्लिक अवे, मिली सेकेंड्स अवे. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? दैट इज वॉट इट इज टॉकिंग अबाउट. सो अब क्या है कि हमें खुश होने के लिए बहुत बड़ा इवेंट लगता है. सो दिस इज डोपामाइन डेप्थ. तो हमें अब डोपामाइन हमारा जो है वो रिलीज होना ऑलमोस्ट बंद हो चुका है, हमें खुशी मिलना बंद हो गई है, क्योंकि और तुम लोग को याद, तुम लोग भी उस एज में हो कि आज से अगर तुम बोलो 15 से 20 साल पहले तुम्हें कोई चीज़ें खुशी मिलती होगी कि पापा ने नया बैट दे दिया, फुटबॉल दे दी, मज़ा ही आ गया कि मैंने जाके क्लास में टॉप किया या इतने परसेंटेज मार्क्स लाया. अब तुम्हें मज़ा आना बंद हो गया होगा वो वाला. तो सोचो जो बच्चे अभी हैं, जो अभी पैदा हुए हैं 4-5 साल पहले, उनको मज़ा कैसे आएगा पता नहीं किसी को. सो बेसिकली वी आर ऑलवेज इन डोपामिन डेट. वी डोंट नो व्हेन वी विल बी हैप्पी. सो बेस लाइन ऑफ हैप्पीनेस हैज इंक्रीज सो मच दैट नाउ पीपल विल नॉट बिकम हैप्पी एट ऑल. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड? I'll give you one more example. Because of industrialization of sex, which is the porn industry, so people are watching porn whenever they want to, and when they're watching porn whenever they want to, the dynamics of the gender dynamics in which males and females approach each other for love, romance, intimacy is now no more required. So people are losing their instinct of being intimate with their partners. Do you understand that? So ultimately, the digital world has somehow increased the baseline satisfaction and it has created the dopamine debt. इतना मुझे लगता है कि अब इससे ज़्यादा एग्जाम्पल तुम्हें जरूरत नहीं जानने की. शोएब मैंने टॉप करना ही बंद कर दिया. Okay, sure. Critics argue that personal responsibility remains the ultimate check. So personal responsibility है भाई, आप खुद कर सको कंट्रोल तो कर लो, अदरवाइज कुछ और है नहीं, है ना. So how it is ignores the radical is asymmetry between a single human brain, thousands of engineers and supercomputers working to capture its attention. यार तुम पर्सनल, तुम अपने आप पे, अपनी इंद्रियों पे कितना ही संयम कर लोगे. तुम हो अकेले, तुम्हारा दिमाग है अकेले, और थाउजेंड्स ऑफ इंजीनियर्स मिलके तुम्हारे उस दिमाग को हार्नेस करना चाह रहे हैं. वो चाह रहे हैं अच्छा बेटा ये शोएब जो है इसने टॉप करना बंद कर दिया है, एक काम करता हूँ, तो शोएब को कुछ नहीं चाहिए. अब मैं शोएब का देखूंगा कि शोएब फोन पे क्या, कौन सी साइट चेक करता है. जो साइट चेक करेगा उसी साइट का एडवर्टीजमेंट मैं फोन पे दूंगा उसको. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? मैंने एग्जाम्पल दे दिया शोएब के लिए. तो तुम अकेले कहाँ तक रोक पाओगे अपने आप को, क्योंकि तुम्हारे दिमाग को हार्नेस करने के लिए हजारों इंजीनियर्स और कंप्यूटर साइंटिस्ट बैठे हुए हैं जो हर दिन यही कर रहे हैं. उनका काम ही यही है, उनका केपीआई ही यही है. ओके. Suggest that an individual should simply choose to put down their phone is like suggesting that a person should choose not to feel hungry when standing in a room filled with the smell of fresh bread. We are witnessing the enclosure of the cognitive commons, where our very ability to focus, the most fundamental prerequisite for deep thought, is being harvested as a raw material. ठीक है कि तुम एक ऐसे रूम में खड़े हो जहां ब्रेड की खुशबू आ रही है, वहां तुम्हें बोला जाए कि तुम खाना मत खाओ. ठीक वही लगता है जब हम फोन को रख देते हैं. Exactly, so that happens, and that is why I gave the example. Okay, so now you have understood it, right? Let's go to the questions. What is the primary characteristic of an impulse desert as defined by the author? तो ये जो प्राइमरी जो इसका कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है इम्पल्स डेजर्ट का, दैट इज बेसिकली prohibitively high, engineering of prohibitively high cognitive costs via the removal of friction to buy something. Let's see. Geographic area वो तो नहीं है impulse desert. That was, see, geographic area was the food desert which I explained to you पहले ही. एक बात बताऊं, ये थोड़ा सा जिन लोगों की वोकेबलरी में प्रॉब्लम होगी वो इस पैसेज को समझने में उन्हें वैसी प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी, बट कॉन्टेक्स्ट से शायद मालूम पड़ जाए. अब जिसको पता नहीं फूड डेजर्ट एक्चुअली एक जोग्राफिकल एरिया है वो कंफ्यूज हो सकते हैं. ओके. इम्पल्स डेजर्ट तो फिर ये एक गलत हो गया, बिकॉज इट्स नॉट द जोग्राफिकल एरिया. Digital environment, yes, with the physical and temporal barriers to gratification have been strategically removed to minimize self-control. Yes, that is it. यही तो है. आगे देखते हैं. Urban landscape नहीं. State of hedonic adaptation where users find it impossible to derive satisfaction from one-click purchases. That is the feature of impulse desert, not the primary characteristic. So between B and D, if I have to choose the primary characteristic, I'll go for B. Is that clear? Coming to second one. The author's comparison between digital nudges and the smell of fresh bread relies on which of the following assumptions. ठीक है, देखो, ब्रेड की एनालॉजी इसलिए दी गई है कि ब्रेड की खुशबू आएगी तो आप अपनी भूख, वो सीधा आपकी एक बहुत ही रॉ प्राइमल फीलिंग पे अटैक करता है, वो है भूख. पता है ना, भूख से बड़ा कुछ नहीं होता, भूख से बड़ी कोई फीलिंग नहीं होती, भूख के लिए लोग सब कुछ करते हैं. तो जितना एक भूख जैसी प्राइमल फीलिंग पे अटैक किया गया है ब्रेड के द्वारा, वही अटैक डिजिटल नजर से किया जा रहा है. एंड दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई स्मेल ऑफ फ्रेश ब्रेड हैज बीन mentioned in the past. Do you understand that? Okay, let's see. Most individuals lack the basic willpower required to navigate even the simplest physical temptations. तो ये कंपैरिजन इस एजम्पशन पे है क्या, क्या ऑथर ऐसा मान के चलता है कि ज़्यादातर लोगों के अंदर बिल्कुल संयम नहीं है? हो सकता है. आगे देखते हैं. एल्गोरिथमिक स्टिमुलाई ट्रिगर्स फिजियोलॉजिकल रिस्पॉन्सेज दैट आर एज इनवॉलंटरी एंड पावरफुल एज द बायोलॉजिकल ड्राइव फॉर फूड. तो ऑथर ये मान के चल रहा है कि डिजिटल नजेस उसी उसी फीलिंग को पे चोट करते हैं जिस भूख की फीलिंग पे फ्रेश ब्रेड की स्मेल चोट करती है. तो बी विल बी अ बेटर चॉइस. सी द अटेंशन इकोनॉमी इज मोर डेंजरस टू पब्लिक हेल्थ देन द एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ फिजिकल फूड डेजर्ट्स. ये तो आउट ऑफ कॉन्टेक्स्ट है. पर्सनल फूड डेजर्ट तो मतलब ये तो जोग्राफिकल एरिया की बात हो गई. पर्सनल रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी इज अ कॉन्सेप्ट दैट वाज इन्वेंटेड बाय द टेक इंडस्ट्री टू डिफ्लेक्ट क्रिटिसिज्म ऑफ देयर एनक्लोजर ऑफ द कॉग्निटिव कॉमन्स. ये बहुत ही वाइड वियर्ड काइंड ऑफ एजम्पशन होगा. इतना एजम्पशन करने के लिए ऑथर को या तो नशे में होना पड़ेगा या पागल होना पड़ेगा. तो डी नहीं हो सकता. तो ए और बी में से कोई एक चूज करना है हमें. ज्यादातर लोगों में विल पावर नहीं है. ऑथर ये अज्यूम करे तो ये भी थोड़ा सा उसका ना बहुत ज्यादा टू फार फेस्ट एजम्पशन होगा. जो बी विल बी अ बेटर एजम्पशन. ये अज्यूम करना लॉजिकली पॉसिबल है. तो मैंने बताया थोड़ी देर पहले जब मैं समझा रहा था शुरुआत के आधे घंटे में पूरे क्लास को, ये कि अगर सब कुछ सही लग रहा हो तो हम वो चूज करेंगे जो लॉजिकल होगा, within the boundaries of logical boundaries of the passage. Got it? Got it? So most individuals lack, that is not as logical as the algorithmic stimuli trigger physiological responses. So we'll go for B. Is that clear, everyone? Tell me in the comments. Coming to last question. Which of the following, if true, यही वो डेंजरस क्वेश्चन होते हैं, कैट में सबके मार्क्स कटवा देते हैं. जिन लोगों ने लास्ट ईयर कैट दिया है, शोएब तुम्हें याद होगा, यही वो सवाल हैं जो डिस्ट्रॉय कर देते हैं पूरे स्कोर को मोस्ट इफेक्टिवली. इसीलिए मैंने सबसे पहले सोचा क्रिटिकल रीजनिंग खत्म कराऊंगा, फिर मैं आऊंगा आरजी में भाइयों. ठीक है. सो इफ ट्रू मोस्ट इफेक्टिवली सपोर्ट्स द ऑथर्स क्लेम रिगार्डिंग द एसिमेट्री ऑफ डिजिटल कंजम्पशन. Okay, okay, let's see. Software developers often use the same variable reward schedules in apps that are found in highly addictive slot machines. तो ये जो जुए और गैम्बलिंग वाले जो स्लॉट मशीन्स होते हैं, उसी तरह के वेरिएबल रिवॉर्ड सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपर्स यूज करते हैं ऐप में. अगर ऐसा करें, अगर ये सच हुआ, इफ दिस इज ट्रू, would that support the author's claim regarding the asymmetry of digital consumption? Okay, let's look at the claim. ये रहा. See, however, okay, critics argue that personal responsibility remains the ultimate check. However, this ignores the radical is asymmetry between a single human brain and the thousands of engineers and supercomputers working to capture its attention. हाँ, तो ये तो लग रहा है कि यही है कि मैंने एग्जाम्पल दिया, शोएब को दिमाग को हजारों इंजीनियर्स मिलके चला रहे हैं, तो वही वेरिएबल रिवॉर्ड दे रहे हैं जो चाहता है. तो लुक्स लाइक ए इज करेक्ट हियर. अगर ए सच मतलब इफ ए इज करेक्ट, it will support the author's claim, right? Let's look at B. Some tech executives have publicly admitted that they do not allow their own children to use the products they build. देखो, ये बात एक तरह से घुमा फिरा के सही हो सकती है, लेकिन उससे बेटर ऑप्शन हमारे पास ए है, इसलिए हम बी को रिजेक्ट कर देंगे. Studies show that the average user checks their phone over 150 times a day, often without a conscious intent. So what? Would that support the claim of asymmetry? Not really. Regulatory bodies are currently debating the implementation of mandatory friction laws for digital marketplaces. अगर ये होगा तो ये सपोर्ट नहीं करेगा, ये उसको उसके अगेंस्ट जा रहा है कि फ्रिक्शन ही खत्म कर दोगे तो सपोर्ट कैसा, वो तो वीकेंड कर देगा, है ना। अगर फ्रिक्शन खत्म हो जाएगा, तुम चाहते हो कुछ चीज खरीदना, तुरंत खरीद लो इसको, ये है ना। तो अगर ये फ्रिक्शन तुम डाल दो तो ये प्रॉब्लम जो है एसिमेट्री डिजिटल कंजम्पशन की खत्म हो जाएगी। तो दिस इज नॉट सपोर्टिंग बट इज वीकनिंग, सो विल गो फॉर ए हियर। सो बी बी ए इज द करेक्ट पॉसिबल सीक्वेंस। I thought of completing like how many, one two three, overall for 8 passages, but we could do 4 only, not a problem. So as I told you that the session PDF will be available on the grad school platform. You can do it from there, by the way. So I think we should end the class over here, more or less, because the both the passages were really difficult, the questions were really difficult, but I'm pretty sure that those who have ever seen the paper of cat might have realized that this is the kind of the more one of the most difficult questions that people can create. C is correct, one says yeah, but C is less correct than the A, than the first one. Because first one, देखो हो क्या रहा है, एसिमेट्री की जब बात करी गई थी तो वहां पे ना बहुत ही क्लियरली उन इंजीनियर्स की बात करी गई थी जो आपके दिमाग को हार्नेस कर रहे हैं। सी ऑप्शन में वो बात नहीं करी गई है। सी ऑप्शन में कि आप अपना फोन खुद चेक कर रहे हो तो आप जिम्मेदार हो वहां पे, ठीक है ना, कि अगर आपकी इंद्रियों पे संयम आपको खुद है तो प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी। लेकिन ए में ऐसा है कि आप अपनी इंद्रियों पे संयम रखो, उसके बाद भी प्रॉब्लम होगी, क्योंकि अब वो आपके ऊपर नहीं है। अगर आपने एक बार भी कुछ कह दिया तो वो जो इंजीनियर्स बैठे हैं, जो कंप्यूटर साइंटिस्ट बैठे हैं, वो आपका अटेंशन ग्रैब कर लेंगे। डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट वंशिज? सो ए इज अ बेटर चॉइस देन सी, बिकॉज सी इज स्टिल अंडर योर कंट्रोल, ए इज नॉट, and that is why it is asymmetry. Okay. Moreover, I am already infamous for doing the difficult questions, be it quant LRDI or be it VARC. So I would not change it. I would just try to explain the difficult questions in the simplest way, because that is what is required for CAT or any kind of MBA exams. So I hope you are cool with this kind of classes, or do you want me to make it easy? Would that make you grow? Not really. You tell me. ऐसे ही करते रहे डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चंस को बहुत इजी तरीके से, तो इजी तो अपने आप कर ही लोगे। There are lot of quizzes already uploaded, so क्विज अपलोड हो चुकी है। इस क्लास के बाद जाके डिनर करो और फिर क्विज सॉल्व करो। और इस पीडीएफ में अभी 4 पैसेज और हैं, मैं वहाँ अपलोड कर दूंगा, इसको भी सॉल्व कर लेना। कल एक और क्लास है क्रिटिकल रीजनिंग का पार्ट 2, ओके, वो हम करेंगे। ऑलराइट, बिफोर आई गो, ओके, लेट मी जस्ट स्विच ऑन माय कैमरा। Before I go, you tell me, how do you like it? And is this the thing that you are looking for? And you think that this is going to help you a lot in the real CAT exam? Because that is what I feel is going to help you. Same time, Shoaib, yes. All right. By the way, I was really sick from last 5 days because I had not slept. In 1 week's time, I slept for only 3 nights, and I got really sick because I was developing the product and the website and a lot of other things which you have started seeing from today. Sachin, I have shared this thing, the entire class schedule. Just see that. Okay. So Also, Gradflix, I published 5 essays yesterday. I hope you have gone through it. All are on on women studies, culture studies, uh, and I have I'm developing some inbuilt features for quick revision on my website, which I developed. Tomorrow I'll be launching all of that. Maybe in the class I'll tell you what exactly is it. So you're gonna enjoy it. All right. कुछ तुम लोग कुछ बोल क्यों नहीं रहे हो यार? कुछ तो बोल दो. अच्छा लग रहा है, बुरा लग रहा है, कुछ और करना है, कुछ नहीं करना है. Just tell me that. Okay. No comments, or maybe the comment lag actually. Yes, Piyush. Level of passage are good. Scope to think properly how to tackle. Absolutely. And you, okay, one thing I want to ask, how many of you are following all the stages that I had done? So last time, कौन मुझे आदित्य और वंशज, someone called me and he told me, sir, 3 days क्लास थोड़ी कम है, इसको 4 दिन कर दीजिए ताकि ना हमें थोड़ा डिसोसिएट ना हो जाए लर्निंग से. मैंने कहा तुम 4 छोड़ो, मैं 6 दिन करूंगा. तो अब 6 दिन चल रही है. ठीक है, आज से. यार तुम लोग बताऊं, तुम लोग बस कैट क्रैक कर देना, 99.9 परसेंटाइल के ऊपर लेके आओ सारे के सारे, और सारे आई जाओ. बस मेरे को यही करना है, और इसीलिए मेहनत मैं कर रहा हूँ पूरी पूरी, और मैं साथ तुम लोग भी उतनी ही मेहनत करो. कोई भी स्टेज छोड़ना मत, जितनी चीज़ें बनाई हैं सारी करो. और पता है उसके बाद मैं ये सब टॉल क्लेम्स प्रॉमिस वॉमिस नहीं करूंगा. बता रहा हूँ ये नेचुरल चीज़ है. वो सारी स्टेजेस कर लोगे, बहुत ही थॉटफुली बनाई गई हैं, और इतना टाइम तुम्हें दिया गया है वो करने के लिए कि तुम सब कुछ कर सकते हो. ठीक है ना? क्रैक कर दो यार इस बार ना. Go to IIMs. That is why all of us are here. Okay, then bye. Good night. Take care. I'll see you again tomorrow.